Okay everyone, and welcome to another section of our course. And before we start learning some more HTML, I just want to introduce to you the concept of the project management triangle or the scope triangle. As to what we've discussed before, one of the tips that I gave you will be to look into the front-end development jobs that will be requiring you to transform PSD files to HTML. I just want to give you some ideas on how to get some ROI or return on investment after finishing this course. You might be interested already into getting started in doing some research about the career path that you will be entering. It's either you get to land on a job or get some clients as a freelance web designer. This is the reason why I wanted to go and discuss some of the ideas when it comes to project management, which includes the scope triangle. You can start finding jobs that can be related to front-end development from where you will just be converting some files or Photoshop files to HTML. And that will require you to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that will be very useful for understanding the semantics, aesthetics, and the dynamic behavior of your websites. Now, if we go through the definition of the project management triangle, as according to Wikipedia, it is a model of the constraints of project management, and it is also called as the triple constraint, iron triangle, and project triangle, and has been used since 1950s. The three constraints that helps determine the priority of the client will be the scope, which will include the features of the project that they want you to build. Another one will be the cost, and it will be positive on the side of the client if it is cheap. And lastly will be the time, which is the development, the time that is needed for you to be able to develop the product with all of its features. The scope triangle is also called triple constraints, and only two of the three constraints can be achievable that will be positive on the side of the client. We can see here that the quality of the work will be constrained by the project's budget, deadlines, and scope or features. The client can only choose two from the three constraints: good quality, fast delivery, or cheap cost. So let's say the client wants to have a lot of features or a complete scope that will have a rush delivery. We cannot say that the service fee or the cost will be cheap, because they want it to be rushed and they are requiring you to implement a lot of features in the project. For the next scenario, let's say the budget is cheap or the client doesn't have a lot of budget and they want it to be a rush project. In this case, we cannot achieve including too many complicated features for the scope. You can then try to communicate with the client and settle on an agreed situation that will be positive for both you and them. Here in this next example, the client wants a lot of features but also wants a cheap cost. The negative constraint here will be the time that will be needed for the project development. You will need to consider the time that you will be using in developing the project. You need to evaluate your per hour rate and check if you will not be on the losing end once you agree with the client and settle with the requirements of the project. If the client is asking too many features and they want cheap costs, you have to determine that the total payment you will receive will be enough for the effort that you will be exerting in building the project. I would suggest that you should set a fixed price, but if ever the client says that they don't have the budget and asks for a discount, you can suggest to the client to make the scope more simpler or make the features simple so that it will be within their budget. Just remember that the communication with your client is going to be very important when it comes to project development. Another key thing that you can talk about with the client will be to have the development face by face. If you remember the Scrum Agile process for development that I've told you before in our project management plan introduction, I would want you to go through that and try to identify what are the different phases that you can implement while having communication with your client with regards to the project development. So that's basically the idea of the scope triangle. Once you try to communicate with your clients about how the projects that you will be delivering and the cost of the project that will be beneficial for both you and your clients. So thank you guys, and I'm hoping you learned a lot about how you can go and try to apply the scope triangle for pricing with regards to having some discussion with your clients. And I am hoping that You can go and use this for your future projects that you will be building for your future clients. And I'm hoping that this will be able to help you in case you would start getting into the freelance development industry.